Let's go Knicks. Peace. Thank you again for listening to the Big Nick Energy Palcast. This is part 2 of Joe Yolk's conversation with Marcus from the Let's Talk Knicks podcast. Make sure to follow them on Twitter at Let's Talk Knicks. It's the one with the two guys' cartoon heads as the logo. Find their podcast where they've restarted for the upcoming season on both Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud. And again, find all of our Big Nick Energy stuff on Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and find our podcast on Google Pods, Podbean, Apple Pods, and Spotify. Let's go Knicks, and hopefully you enjoy part 2.
I hope that the real beneficiary of all this is RJ. And granted, Canada's, who knows what they're going to do, but they have so many good players.
Here, I'll rattle off their roster for everyone knows. Yeah. Also, I'm really glad you made the Carmelo Anthony Olympic point before, because if there's anyone that can really benefit from like just taking and actually making open shots, if he's able to really pull it off, it would be RJ Barrett, because RJ Barrett's known to struggle for the first 3 months of every season. But maybe we could speed up that process by having him play.
He's coming in warm and he's ready to go.
Exactly. So Team Canada has a lot of good NBA players, and what's crazy is that both Ben Mathurin and Andrew Wiggins is not even on this roster. RJ Barrett, Jamal Murray, SGA, Dylan Brooks, who is the more angry version of Josh Hart, Lou Dort, who is the better version of Josh Hart, Gilgeous-Alexander Walker, Kelly Olynyk, Dwight Powell, Zach Edey, who actually decided to go back to college, which I think is kind of crazy, O'Shea Brissett, Corey Joseph, and that's all NBA players. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 active NBA players, and Edey will be in the NBA next year, whether he's playing a lot or like Taco Fall, whatever, but he'll be in the NBA. So that's 11 NBA caliber dudes. And then I have Kevin Pangos, who played with Olynyk at Gonzaga, plays in Italy. Cassis Robertson, who plays for Valencia, and then Phil and Thomas Scrub, who both play in the CBL and overseas. So they actually have a 10 deep, 11 deep roster of like real good, talented NBA caliber players. And I'm really excited for RJ, because playing off both Jamal Murray and SGA, it's almost like having two guys that are as good, if not better than Brunson out there to be able to play off of them. And the spacing of this team, we always talk about the biggest problem with RJ and Randall is that neither one of them is really like, they can make threes. Randall a little more consistently than RJ and has like 2% higher percentage points because of it. But they're not 3-point shooters, and they're both lefties. They want to get to similar spots. They run into the same problem. They play with Mitch, who also doesn't do a lot of floor spacing, obviously. Playing with Jamal Murray and SGA, and then having Olynyk at the 5, that's going to be a lot of spacing for this dude to actually play with. And you brought up Melo. If RJ Barrett can just take and make open catch and shoot threes, and which he's one of the worst at in the NBA based on his attempts, that is where we need this kid to really step up. And like, if he's ever going to be the future all-star, that like, I'm assuming you and Jason both might be in that boat, that you still think he's like upper echelon, like could be like a top 20, top 25 NBA player. I actually would rather keep Quickly than RJ if I had to pick long-term for this team, but I'm not going to, we don't have to really get into that if you don't really want to. But yeah, like this is the time this kid and this guy's going to be able to really actually get a chance to do something that he's never set up to do with his current NBA roster on the Knicks. And either there's going to be a lot of people that are right and happy, or there's going to be a lot of people that are right and sad. Because as someone that's not the biggest RJ believer, I would rather be wrong than be right about this, you know?
Like and to what you were saying, I didn't even think, when I said it, I was thinking more Brunson, and then I was like, oh, RJ is the one who could benefit the most, probably.
I'm worried that Brunson and Halliburton are going to actually be competing for the same spot, and then we're going to hate Tyrese even more.
Once he starts throwing lobs to Obi, and that's going to just it's going to hurt my heart. But I love Obi. But RJ, I still don't really understand how he has not been able to fix his shooting form to become a legit, because it's like it's there. It's a little clunky sometimes, but just working on becoming a good catch and shoot shooter. And maybe that's not his, like his game has always been downhill.
Yeah.
Like that's how he always was. Even like in college, he didn't shoot it a ton, but You knew he could get into the paint. And now you know this is how guys are going to play you. Like, they're going to leave you open, and you got to start making these shots. And playing with those kind of guys, playing with the Jamal Murray and like SGA, like you're saying, they're going to get you. They're going to have you open. They're going to get you open.
100%.
You got to be able to hit them. So maybe he starts figuring out, talking to those guys. I don't know, like, that lethal shooter guy.
Yeah.
I was like, I was wondering if he, like, you never see him really work with lefties, but could he benefit from just having someone just show him how to shoot the ball? Like, they got robots out there that can shoot these basketballs.
Yeah.
Like, you can figure it out. So,
dude, I think it's part of RJ's problem, man. His elbow looks too robotic. It's like too straight, and then
he stands and holds it for 3 seconds after he lets it
I
go.
wanted to say that before when you
were
were talking about how Randall doesn't seem like he always tries or gets back on defense. Does it matter if Randall's not running versus RJ is holding his shot for him for too long? Because they both end up in the same spot.
Both are very frustrating. I'm just like, what are you doing, man? Like, you want to just go back to Love and Basketball with Monica and just like, okay, you want to do that? Stand there and hold it for the next 2 hours because you got to knock that off.
Yeah.
But I really like, I didn't even think of it. Like, yeah, he's always off for those first like 2 months of the season. And maybe this is the way to bypass that, where he comes in and just is feeling it. And, playing against, they always say like the international game is a little bit more physical, that they're allowed to play against the rules they're allowed to play with. So, maybe you're learning to take more contact and you're not driving the basket, but then veering off to the left to shoot it, go at these guys. And that just also comes with strength and getting used to the league. And I I'm hopeful. I think I made a bold prediction that I thought he was going to become an all-star this season, but, maybe, I'd love to be. I think RJ is one of those guys, like you said, you hope for less or you think less, but you'll be happy to be proven wrong.
100%.
And is this the year? I don't know. Because, if anything, if he's playing well, it most likely puts him in a trade package for that superstar.
Right.
And even though I will be more upset if he's having a great year and then they get rid of him, and I'll just be like, all right, there's 3 more jerseys that I can't wear anymore. I'd still want to see him be great and maybe playing internationally and playing with those guys. Because I think Team Canada might have a little bit more,
their top end talent's better than ours. Like
Jamal
Murray and SGA, I think, would both be the best players on America, and they have both of them.
Yeah, exactly. So like I don't know what like seedings and stuff are, like if they might play or what scenarios.
They're not in the same group, so they both have to go through their groups. Which
so if they get to like knockout rounds,
and
see where it falls, and if they actually play each other, that's what everyone wants to see.
Yeah,
but if RJ comes out there and has to like go up against Josh Hart or has to go up against Brunson, like that's awesome. If we get to see that and just see teammates having to play against each other, so I'm sure someone's going to be doing a little finagling behind to get that to happen, to get the USA and Canada to play each other.
Yeah. They already have the groups and brackets all set up. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if I haven't looked beyond the group stage, so I don't know how far up they would have to go. But generally speaking, between USA, Canada, Spain, France, and then usually Australia is like the 5th best team, or like Latvia, Lithuania, one of them. Like generally speaking, those 4 or 6 are always in the last 8, one way or another. So,
So when does that start? I don't even.
August. I think the first day is the week of the 8th, I believe.
All right.
And then the last player that actually got added from the Knicks to a USA based team is on the select roster, which are the guys that practice against Team USA to get them ready. And also, if there are any injuries to Team USA, which knock on wood, hopefully no one gets hurt playing non-NBA basketball. That would really suck. They would pick from one of the USA select roster guys. So Quentin Grimes is the New York Knicks representative, which is awesome because it's also another. I'm hoping the opposite chance happens for Grimes based on this roster versus RJ. RJ is going to be set up by 2 great point guards to really get a chance to either one catch and shoot drive against traffic, go against what the defense is doing, and get a chance to really go to the rim. Grimes is playing with a team that has two guys that are young point guards, and I think Cade has a chance to be really special, but I don't know if Jalen Green's actually even meant to be a point guard. I think he's meant to be a combo guard and is kind of just masquerading as a point guard for a team that sucks right now. But so it's Quinn Grimes, Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, Peyton Pritchard, who's also a point guard, but I mean, come on now. Not on their level. Trey Murphy, Naz Reid, two guys from the Thunder, Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams, the better Jalen Williams, not the big Jalen Williams, and Keegan Murray, who might end up being the best player out of all these guys on this roster in a couple of years, not currently. I would say currently it's probably Naz Reid based on how young these guys are and what's been shown, which is kind of wild because it's a third string center on a team that shouldn't have three centers, but that's neither here or there. So this roster is actually really interesting because, again, this is just for practice sake. They're not actually playing in like any games that really count. I know we didn't actually go through the starting five for the other two. I'm trying to figure out what the starting five for this be. I would imagine it is Cade and Jalen Green both starting. Trey Murphy, I'm assuming, has to be the 4 based on this. I would probably say Keegan starts over Grimes, and then they have Chet or Naz as their big, just going up against the Team USA team. I think Grimes is actually going to have a chance to really do what RJ is doing for Canada, but have catch and shoot opportunities, but also like really have the ball in his hands for a lot of the times, just based on what this looks like. So with all those young guys you heard and with Quentin Grimes on this roster, what would you be looking for if we were actually able to watch the games on TV?
I mean, it almost makes you think of what was it, like the rookie sophomore game last year?
Oh, he went off, yeah.
And Grimes just going off, and like you're playing against like similar guys in some sense with on these teams, and you know everyone's like, wait a minute, so he can attack the basket too? He's got handles, he can shoot, all these things that we know about Grimes. They just don't get showcased in NBA games because Tapes doesn't put him in the right positions to do it. And people have caught on to the pump fake at the corner 3, and then he drives in the middle of the basket and then goes nowhere. So
I watched one time in his whole career finish with his left hand. I literally tweeted out about it on the BKE account because he never does.
It's like, hopefully he figures that out of like, you don't either just shoot it or, you know, get creative with what you're doing. And that also, again, plays into, you know, Mitch and Julius clogging the paint up, and it's not a lot of spread. There's not a lot of movement and spread actions and stuff on this team because it drives into traffic all the time. But I'd want to see. I think he has a lot of potential, and especially when it's weird seeing guys like, you know, like a Jalen Green, Cade Cunningham. They're all, and you're playing more with ball dominant people on the floor. So like you said, yeah, he'll be like that catch and shoot guy. And that's fine. If, you know, he's gotta make them. People don't talk about that shot at the end of game 6. He shot an air ball off to the side, and you're just like, what was that? So like they weren't out of the game yet by then. And he got a little nervous and things went sideways. But, you know, I'm hopeful for him to have a good season. But again, it cuts into the way our roster now is constructed with, you know, DiVincenzo's probably going to take some of those minutes depending on how they come out of the gates. And, you know, you have that's really like, they're really the same kind of player, you know, like two-way players. They can handle the ball. They play hard defense. They can shoot it. And so it's like, okay, which one's having a good day?
Yeah.
And which makes him probably more expendable in the trade. But yeah, I'd be looking. It's interesting when I can't remember some of the big names that were on that reserve team in the past, but they've always I remember hearing guys talk about it and how it benefits them so much. Like, I forget who it was that was playing, like when Kobe was there, and you just sit there and talk to them, you know, like even when you're not playing, but you interact with these guys. And granted, this team does not have the levels of like a Kobe and KD on the team to kind of pick their brains, but it still is an experience that you can take something away from it. And
here, I looked up the 2012 actually while you were saying that, if you want to hear the roster. from the 2012 select team. There are some
Yeah.
good names on here that actually started showing out very much so afterwards. So that's Kyrie Irving, John Wall, Brian Anderson. That didn't work out that well. DeJuan Blair, also not really. DeMarcus Cousins, DeMar DeRozan, Derek Favors, Paul George, Taj, Gordon Hayward, Kawhi Leonard, Jeremy Lin. That's hilarious. And
Really?
Klay Thompson. So it had Irving, Wall, Boogie, DeMar DeRozan, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Klay Thompson, all as the select roster.
So yeah, like we see the guys that can really, and then what happens, the next year after they've been on this team. I mean, Kyrie was really good back then anyway. So, but he was just on a bad team.
Yeah.
And then, like Paul George comes along, Kawhi, no one was really talking about until 2014, that year, 2013, 2014.
The next season, I think, is when they win that title.
Yeah. So like he's got an opportunity. Grimes has an opportunity. It's all in, is he gonna take advantage of it? And he strikes me as the type of guy that will.
Yeah.
And he's another one I have really high hopes for, and I like him being on this team, which takes me back to, like, I don't really want to break up this team yet unless it's for something crazy, but I want to see how they play together. And like, maybe we just scratch the surface of this team. Could they be one piece away? Could they, as constructed, be all of a sudden like a top 4, top 3 team? Like Milwaukee, I think, is the wild card in that top 3 that we don't know what they're going to be, because new coach, Brooke Lopez. What is he really? I mean, it's fine.
Middleton stay healthy.
Middleton's older again, and he's coming off injuries, so you never really know what they might be. Do I still fear them? Yes, but they're like the one team I'm always like worried about matchup wise, because
they dominate us. Giannis is just so much better than Randall, and they just run so much through him.
But they're also not going to be playing the same style that Budenholzer does, which was just shoot a whole bunch of threes.
Yeah.
So, but wait, who's their coach now again? Is it Nick Nurse?
No. Nick Nurse went to Philly. They hired not Alvin Gentry, Adrian. I have to look up his name.
Is it like a new coach?
Yeah, no, it's a new coach.
So that could be what
Adrian Griffin
with them. So like having the new coach is gonna. They've been playing the same way for so long, and it really was just like high volume 3-point shooters around Giannis.
Yeah,
and I'm curious to see what they do with that now, what they do like with this roster and how they're going to play. Because yes, you still have one of the top players in the league on your team, but they can't do it themselves. Case in point, Joel Embiid. So like, how are you going to fill out the roster, and what's your style of play going to be? But their style just always got the best of the Knicks for the last like 3 years.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how they start to come through together to start the season. And I mean, I'll be ready. I'm not like, I want to be pleasantly surprised. I think that's been like the feeling the last couple of years, is like, you don't want to take a step back like we did last year, like in 2022 after that playoff run. You want to see, are we going to end? Having Jalen Brunson is the difference maker. Even if Julius takes a step back, that doesn't mean we're going to completely flounder. And that's what happened. So you have a guy you can trust, and you hope that these younger guys that are just, starting to come into their own in the league, like 3-4 years in, they're really like, okay, we know what it takes now. Like Quick, he knows that he didn't show up in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And he's going to get it together. He knows that. So he's going to come back better, hopefully.
Grimes as well. Quick and Grimes both disappointed, and it's their first major opportunity in the playoffs, and you just don't know what you're running into until you run into it.
Yeah, and you kind of have to do that, which is why I don't know why people were so going so nuts about like, oh, this team is they're not gonna do anything, they're never gonna win anything like this. But like they're a young team, like no one expected them. Do we have a path conceivably to get to the finals last year? Yes, but a lot of those guys haven't been there before, and you go up against a team that has been there before, and they beat us. So they played it all out much better than we did. Now you gain that experience. What do you come back with? And I think I like the makeup of these guys, their character that I've seen, that they will really be upset about this, and they're gonna come back knowing what to expect. That's like the biggest thing, and then see what if we get. I mean, I won't say. Well, I'll say if we get back to the playoffs, how are they gonna handle it? And if it turns out that Julius can't handle it again, then you start looking around. But again, who's gonna take him?
Right.
So that's the thing. Nobody wants it. So
I don't get it. Marcus, I have one last question for you, and then I'll let you go. This has been a really fun hour. I really appreciate this conversation.
Yeah, this flew by. So
yeah, great way for me to wake up. I literally woke up 10 minutes before I messaged you. So thank you for coming on. The last question I have for you. I know it's based on you, like you said, you love RJ Barrett and you have really high hopes for him and stuff like that. If you were to put a percentage chance of like chance A happening or chance B happening, and both of those things don't happen, I asked on our Instagram page and Twitter recently this week, which of these four situations are most likely? I'm not going to make you pick between all four because it's either most likely one or the other, unfortunately. Which of these four is most likely to happen first? RJ Barrett makes the All-Star game with the Knicks. RJ Barrett makes an All-Star team on a different team. Emmanuel Quickley makes an All-Star team with the Knicks. Emmanuel Quickley makes an All-Star team with a different team. And the two options that had the highest votes, one blew out the other. Obviously, RJ making an All-Star as a Knick blew out where a Knicks page, whether the rest of the NBA would think one way or another or not, we're a Knicks fan page. It was going to always be that one. But RJ Barrett makes the All-Star game as a Knick, or Emmanuel Quickley makes an All-Star game once he's dealt to a different team. How much would you say has a chance of column A, and how much do you think has a chance of column B?
I mean, it all depends what teams, but I think Quick is the most likely to get traded, and then would then benefit from being on another. He'd probably start on another team and really
most other teams.
So I would say that has a likelier chance of happening. I would say is Quick become like, even if he's not like, yeah, he's not going to be an all-star starter, but he'll get voted in by the coaches or something. And yeah, I'd say like, what were the percentages?
So it was 40. I looked like an hour before it was done. It was 48% RJ makes the All-Star as a Knick. Obviously, it was the most amount, but I mean, between four things, for getting half the votes is a lot. And then it was like 20, 18, 16, or however that math was, but 20% was Quickley makes an All-Star as another team. It wasn't even Quickley makes an All-Star as a Knick as the second highest. It literally was like anyone that felt this way, which is the one I voted for. I voted for that Quickley would make an All-Star somewhere else. Was like, this dude, I think this dude is better than this dude, but our team is married to this guy more than this guy. It's just not going to happen here. Even if Quickley ever had a chance of being an All-Star as a Knick, it would have never happened. It's never going to happen on the same team as Jalen Brunson. It just is what it is.
And I think that's my thinking as well of why that makes more sense for him. I don't know when that might happen, but I think that the likelihood of that being the case, I would say, yeah, Quick on another team making an All-Star appearance, and I'd love to see it for him. I'd love it because I love that dude. He's another one I'm like nervous to get a jersey for because like they're gonna trade him as soon as I buy one. He's gone. So
dude,
that's why I only buy
Quickley,
jerseys of old players.
RJ, and Grimes, if all three of them were actually still on the Knicks at the beginning of next season, it would be the happiest surprise I feel like I would ever run into in my life. But I just can't imagine it. I literally can't imagine, because with the Quickley extension due, RJ already signing his extension and getting much bigger money this year. And it's just like, you're paying a lot for guys that are like, they're kind of not interchangeable, but they're kind of comparable in what they're asked to do for this team. And you can't give 80 to $90 million to a position ideology that you can only play two of the three guys. Goes back to the Randall Tobias thing. Those guys can't be on the same team. It just doesn't make sense.
And it's not like, you're dealing with the Warriors who won titles, so they figure out a way to keep these guys together. It's like, all right, well, which one are we gonna go with? And I just don't want to I don't want it to fall into like a similar Obi thing where you're just like, you could tell Quick is like frustrated because he would rather be starting somewhere, or he knows he could play more minutes and he doesn't want to be a backup anymore and knows he could get it from another team. We'll see what happens with his extension too, but it's, I just don't want him to become an unhappy player. We'll see what happens now that his boy is gone. Like, who's he going to be hanging out with? But
I'm pretty sure him and Sims are still friends. But yeah, no, it is rough.
That's cool. He's probably like, yeah, Sims' entire attractive family.
Yeah.
He's like, maybe I'll hang out with him.
Sims is great to hang out with, man. I just talk the whole time and he nods. It's really nice.
Everyone always wonders, like, what does his voice sound like? What is he like? What's going on there? Just yeah. Right.
Yeah. It just jumps. He jumps higher than he says words in a day. It's really impressive. Marcus, thank you so much for doing this, man. I really, really appreciate it. You were awesome. Everyone, make sure to check out the Let's Talk Nick podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and SoundCloud. And anything else you want to plug, feel free to let them know.
Yeah. If you wanted to ask us about the name, you can ask. But
oh yeah, no, I forgot. I'm not the one. Like, I'm not a part of the LTK beef. I don't really care. Like, I think it's solely because like we are in the off season and there's straight up too many Knicks fan pages. There's too many Knicks fans. New Yorkers are naturally angry people. We're naturally, it's so cold out. I'm going to try to make millions of dollars. Like just naturally like an aggressive version of human. And I like literally forgot to even ask you that because I enjoyed the actual Knicks talk we were having so much. But sure, yeah. You are Let's Talk Knicks. Obviously, Let's Talk Knicks _ and Big Nick Energy has a beef right now. And for some reason has a beef on and off for like the past 6 to 8 months, which is weird because also Charlotte and Vin have tried to work together a couple times, and that seems like it's what causes the beef. What's it like having the Let's Talk Knicks name? Where did you come up with it? And then how often does the LTK _ name try to hit you up to say that they deserve the name for some reason?
I mean, we don't have a beef per se. Like, it's not like
we have a beef with them. I'm not saying you don't.
But like, it was weird because we've had it since, I think we had the name of the podcast since 2018 is when we started it. Yep. And it was funny. We had just like a Word doc of names that we were kicking around, and that was the one we were like, yeah, I mean, we always say that to each other. Hey, you want to talk some? We want to talk some Knicks, and like that's what we're like. Yeah, okay, cool. Let's go with that. So we just like pull that one, and we've had it, and then all of a sudden I started seeing another person with it. And I'm like, well, who is this? Like, what is going on? And like, they're posting stuff all the time. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's not us. Like, there's another person that's out there doing it. And this is like last year sometime. And, they did reach out to us and ask us about the name because we were getting tagged and stuff they're pushing because I think the spelling was slightly different. Originally, it was like, they had 1K because we had the original Let's Talk Knicks. Like we've had the name the whole time.
Yep.
So, and it's really a matter of like, it's not our problem that you didn't look first before you did it. So why did I give it up? And that's kind of been the case. They ask sometimes, and it's like, like whatever. But it's like it always comes back to like, why should we? But
what is the asking price you would make Charlotte or someone else from LTK give you before you would actually sell their name on Twitter?
I don't know. I mean, they that's the thing. They haven't like offered us money or anything for it. So it's like, I mean, if you did, then sure, maybe we'll listen to it. But it's so crazy that like, it's a Twitter handle, but also that we've had the name, and now they have a podcast called the Let's Talk Knicks podcast, which is actually what ours was called.
Right.
So it's like, it's weird to have the two out there. And I'm glad, like, I do see sometimes people will comment on their stuff and be like, wait a minute, isn't there another one that's around longer? And she keeps saying she's trying to get the name and this and that. I'm like, well, I'm not giving it up. So unless you want to give us like thousands of dollars for something outrageous, but we have no reason to give it up. And it's just like, it's weird, like when we're grown, we're not children running around trying to do these things, and it's no sweat off our back just to like, it's there. If we're getting more followers, that's not our problem. So when we can, and people are always like, you guys should like have just do an episode together and see who deserves the name more. I'm like, we could, but we would win because we have it. So
Right.
there's no reason to give it up.
Like, what is that? You get a third party to start asking like historical Knicks questions.
I mean, and that doesn't count because we're a lot older, so we know all these things. Like,
Right. It would help you out more.
I've lived this Knicks team for the last 30 years, so I've seen some things and been around a lot of these players and a lot of these teams. So it's the passion's there, and it's been.
It's
there
like, who was the first guy off the bench for the 94 finals team? And they're like, well, I wasn't even born in 94. So, like, I don't know.
Yeah, but also, who cares? And I'm pretty sure it was probably, let's see, 94. Would I go? Wait, who's coming out? Oh, probably no, not Derek. Derek Harper's starting. Yeah, it's Harper, Starks, Oakley, probably Anthony Mason coming off the bench.
Yep.
It's probably the first guy. Charles Smith still hurts. See, they don't know about that Charles Smith pain in 93.
How are we going to go from having Mark Jackson and Rod Strickland to having neither, not having a real starting NBA finals caliber point guard and trading for Charles Smith to come off the bench?
You know what's funny is that year. So I used to work. I work in advertising too. So I've worked on with some teams in the past. I worked with the Clippers at one point, and I was talking to Doc Rivers one day because I was the only one in there. I had like my Knicks water bottle. They always yell at me for doing that, but I'm like, I'm not gonna carry on a Clippers water bottle. But I'd be in stuff, and Doc Rivers comes by, and he's like, oh, you're a Knicks fan. How's it going, man? And I always tell him, I was like, yeah, 94, man. That was the year. And he's like, oh man, I just saw Pat Riley recently at the gas station and we were talking about this. And he's like, if he never got injured, he's like, we win the title that year if I don't get injured. And I'm like, you're probably right. Because I mean, no shades of Derek Harper at all, because he was amazing. And if they had won, maybe he even gets finals MVP because he was great in that series. But
I mean, Starks going 2 for 18 or whatever it was too is just really rough. And he got blocked. And Hakeem makes like the biggest block in anti-Knicks history of the block on the get 3 for game 6. It's just
for years I was like, he got a piece of his wrist. I know he got a piece of his wrist. Like that wasn't a clean block.
I've seen replays before though. It seems like he hits the ball first. Like even if he tips it, it's just.
And that shot was going in. If he wasn't there, that shot was going in. I remember watching that game live, and like Starks is just shot after shot. You're like, oh my god, is this gonna happen? Is this gonna happen? Like brought us back to this game. I was like 8 years old when that was going on, watching it on this little TV at my cousin's house, and oh man, it still hurts. See, that's what the Let's Talk Knicks brand is about. We're a passion podcast. Like we don't delve into like the numbers and the stats and all that stuff, but we do the eye test. So that's a lot of what we talk about. Is just like how we feel watching these games and like what we see out there, not necessarily all the analytics or anything. So, we are the original Let's Talk Knicks. If people want to find us, we're on Twitter at Let's Talk Knicks. Again, podcast is the Let's Talk Knicks podcast. It's the one with our faces on it. And we have the Instagram page too. We don't really use it as much anymore, but let's_talk_Knicks, because some random person actually does have the Let's Talk Knicks Instagram page for no real reason. It's like, you don't know who this person is, but they just put it up there. And yeah, so thanks for again having me on here. This was awesome. It's just like a cool conversation. So, and just fun. So anytime you guys want to talk again, we're happy to talk some Knicks, and maybe even like when the season gets on and we have more stuff to talk about.
I'm down, man. Absolutely. I actually wish
going on.
I wish I could have met Jason, and I wish you could have met our whole team, because I'm one of 6 and I was the only one here, even though I have the least amount of sleep, so I don't get it. Also, same thing for us on their end though. We have Big Nick Energy _. Who has the real Big Nick Energy? Angela reached out a couple times. I don't even know if he ever got a hold of the guy. It might just be some dead username at this point, but it exists, and whatever. It's no big deal.
Yeah, people, if they want to find you, they'll find you.
Exactly.
The only thing that gets me is when I hear the creator of Let's Talk Knicks, and I'm like, but you weren't. So, but yeah, that's the one thing. But
you know what they're doing? They're underscoring the real Let's Talk Knicks.
Look at that. See, grammar too. Look at you, math and words.
Full circle, circle of life, English and math, I guess. Marcus, you were great, man. I really appreciated this. This is so long, I might do 2 parts, honestly.
Yeah, cool, man. Sometimes that's a good fun thing with podcasts. You just kind of people talking, you never know. Just let it roll.
So true. Make sure to like, share, subscribe to all of our stuff. Make sure to find Let's Talk Knicks on Apple Podcasts, the actual Let's Talk Knicks on Twitter, let's_talk_Knicks on Instagram, and they're also on SoundCloud. So let's go Knicks. Let's talk Knicks. Let's be Knicks.
All right,
Peace.
man. Thanks.